My guest today is Matt Gay, and we're going to be talking about how good ad operations drives good yield management and some specifics that you need to be thinking about if you're a publisher. Matt and I first met over 10 years ago when he was at Martha Stewart Living on the publisher side. Matt has deep experience in ad operations, having been the former senior vice president at Operative, a company that specialized in ad operations for digital media. He has a unique perspective, having worked in technology and ad ops. He's also spent time on the publisher side at LinkedIn. He's worked on the agency side at IPG, and he has worked in consulting firms like Accenture and Deloitte. Matt, it is so good to have you here today.
It's great to be here, James. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Now, Matt, let's start with some of the different types of challenges for ad operations. At the end of the day, buyers and sellers both want campaigns to be running effectively and ads to be served to people, hopefully the right people, but they value very different things. So let's start with the buy side. What is the most painful thing for advertisers as they're thinking about their interaction with the ad ops experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and they're very different. Or can be very different things. On the buy side, or on the agency side, there are so many layers of marketing within a company. There's marketing operations. There's marketing planning. There's obviously brand marketers. There's direct response marketing. The marketing organization is highly matrixed in companies, and the agency is kind of left at the end, with a deadline to actually deliver. So what often happens is it's a big timing challenge on the agency side because things get backed up. Not because anybody's obviously trying. Everybody's got the same goals to get the campaign, live, and effective. But there are so many moving parts, and the agency is, at the end of things. So the biggest challenge, on the agency side, oftentimes, is to be able to provide a lot of analytics and a lot of, reporting, and provide a lot of added value to the campaign. Because everything is usually always such a rush to get it live that everybody kind of just breathes a sigh of relief, once it gets live. Now, and that's where the fun begins on the publisher side. So now, their job is kind of twofold, actually, and that's where we get into yield a little bit. First and foremost, and the umbrella is making sure that campaign delivers according to its goals. And sometimes sellers might have oversold a little bit, in the sales process, and targeting might be a little bit different. The demographic might be a little bit different. The content may be a little bit different. And obviously, just human response might be different. So on the publisher side, the challenge is making sure that campaign delivers always in full. And then the dual challenge is making sure it's got the optimum yield for the publisher, right? That's how publishers stay in business. So it's also taking a look at the campaign and noticing what might be popping a little bit more, where things might be a little sluggish, and maybe you want to up an investment in a particular area, again helping the campaign achieve its goals. And that's a big belief that I've always had, is that yield management and campaign performance don't have to be at odds. I think they actually serve each other very well, and I think the buy side and sell side can serve each other very well, because at the end of the day, you're looking for the best experience for the consumer, which both are responsible for doing.
When you've worked with ad ops teams, either on the publisher side or the buy side, what are the skills that you think make for a great ad operations team? And I'll throw some out at you, and I won't let you say all of the above. So you're going to
E is not a proper response. E for all the above.
There are challenges around things like knowing the technology, being very process focused to make sure that the campaign went live, doing a check-in after a few days. There is sort of being client focused. There's a whole range of skills that go into making a good ad ops team. From your perspective, what's top of that list?
For me, it's curiosity, because I believe that curiosity is tough to train in somebody. All the things that you mentioned are very important, but are all things that you can train. You can train people on the technology. You can train people on the process. Yes, some are going to be better or good or what have you, and there's going to be a little bit of investment of time. But ultimately, in my opinion, what makes a great ad ops professional is a sense of curiosity, of what if we change the targeting a little bit on this campaign? What if we raise the frequency cap or reduce the frequency cap? Or what if we open this campaign up to different types of content? Or why did the seller sell this the way they sold it? So all of these things, in my opinion, ultimately make for a better campaign and a better experience for the marketer and the advertiser, because now you're adding value. Right now, when you go back and you talk to the agency, and or the marketer, you have perspective, and you are bringing something to the table other than, yes, your campaign ran in full, you spent the whole budget, we hit all the KPIs, all that's terrific, but honestly anymore, that's what's expected. And in order to differentiate yourself, you need the people on the front lines, the people in the campaigns, to be able to pick their head up and be like, what if we did this, or what if we did that?
Perfect. Hey, do you have an example from all of your time working in the industry, of where an advertiser or a publisher has behaved inefficiently due to either the systems or the processes that are in place?
Yeah. You're right. There are so many. What I guess, if I were to sort of generalize, them, because they're all very, similar, is when I've come into ad up situations on either the buy side or the sell side, and you start to be curious and ask the questions why, the answer often comes back is because that's the way we've always done it, or that's the way we do things. And what I started to do was, what if we stop doing this? Or what if we start doing that? Or what if we change this? And usually you get met a little bit with the, well, that's not going to work because, and that's not going to work because, and we've tried that before. And you humor me, try it again. Let's try it in pieces. Let's try it in a different way. I'm not a big proponent of blowing things up, so to speak. But certainly with taking pieces, and starting and stopping, doing, particular things, because I've just found that there are so many things that are being done today, that don't actually need to be done. And the second part around that is around automation. Often, we've been able to automate a lot of tasks, either, within the ad server or within the campaign, management system, outside of the ad server, analytics, obviously, right? We're getting into the age, of AI and different kinds of, analytics. You're able to, automate a lot of things. So the first thing is to, stop doing or clean out kind of the, the dead wood of process. And then the next layer is to automate what needs to be done, but what can be, automated, which I haven't really seen that put many people out of jobs yet. I've seen that, actually, the way I describe it is you start to work with your head and not your hands. Your ad ops people now, and going back to what I was talking about earlier, your ad ops people now can add value. They can actually start to analyze and start to think about things. And everybody should be thinking about yield, and everybody should be thinking about forecasting and inventory optimization. I know, as the yield doctor, that's music to your ears, and everybody should be thinking about yield management. But in advertising operations, that's really what it's all about.
Well, what about, have you seen examples where someone sort of focused on the wrong part of the equation? Maybe, they should be focused on multi-touch and they're using last touch, or other examples like that?
Yeah. There's one particular example that comes to mind. Very, relatively large, marketing or company with a marketing organization spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year in, in digital advertising. And I was on the, the publisher side, ad ops, yield and, sales kind of, altogether. And this company was, again, remember I just said they spend hundreds of millions of dollars in digital marketing. They were still working off a last touch attribution, last click. And that took me a little bit by surprise because this was only, about a year or two ago. And the response we got back was, well, it's easier. It's easier to use last click. And it's tough to argue with to some degree. It is certainly easier and cleaner, but you're actually missing the story. And at the end of the day, you're actually wasting money because you can be a lot more efficient with your ad dollars if you are looking at the whole customer journey or multi-touch attribution. And to take it one step further, their system of record worked off of last touch attribution and low cost. And that's what they had to buy based off of. But we had other data and they had other data that actually showed that they could be much more efficient if they bought differently, but their processes and their policies and even their systems were such that it didn't allow them to actually, operate, differently. So to the tune of wasting, I don't know how much, but, a whole lot of money on marketing, a lot of inefficient, campaigns. And it just kind of goes to show you, James, the part that humans really still play, and will continue to play, in these roles. Yes, we have, AI. Yes, we have automation, and that is going to automate many, many different things. But at the end of the day, this inefficiency, was actually caused by and can be solved by, it actually can be solved by people thinking about the whole marketing process and actually understanding, the whole marketing process. So, I like to think of, technology as a helper and helping me do and automate some of the things that I can do. That it can do so that I can then use my time, thinking more about analyses and bigger business problems.
So when you think about the evolution of the industry at the moment, we've got a situation where the tools should be getting easier to use, right? We should be getting more standardized processes,
Yeah.
But in some respects, we continue to have the industry get more and more complex due to new formats, digital out of home, CTV, etc. Who's winning in that trade-off?
What do you mean who's winning?
Is the complexity overwhelming the systems? Is life getting simpler?
I see. I think it's, one for complexity, zero for, simplicity. And, honestly, and this is just another evolution, right? We go up and we go down. Oh, you and I have been at this for, a long time. And back in the day, there were banner ads, and then all of a sudden, video showed up. And then we had dynamic, ads. And at the end of the day, I firmly believe that it's the humans that complicate things and that can also simplify things. So what I mean by that is, yes, there are all of these new things going on, like you mentioned, digital, out of home, connected TV, and they all have their associated complicated, technologies, along with it, which is all great. But you have to start small and you have to build. One of the things, that I always tell that we always do, and I tell other ad ops teams, especially when they're looking at, reporting and yield, is to make sure your foundation is right. Make sure your data is actually correct. Because if you go starting off, with complicated yield analyses and forecasting, if your base data isn't right, then your forecast and your yield is going to be wrong. The same things go with all of these new technologies. If you don't get them right in a small and simple format, then when you scale, things go haywire, and then yes, the machines do take over, and complexity wins, and simplicity, does not win. So I think it's just up to the humans to take control of the technology, start small, get it to work, and then scale from there. And that's where I've seen success.
Got it. Let's talk about yield, since this is the Yield Doctor channel. Yeah. What are the mistakes that publishers make in ad operations that negatively impact yield?
So one I hit on already, right? Which is around just understanding what they've got. So they may or may not have a rate card. And I remember from, one of your lessons, recently, they had the wrong rate card, or the old year's rate card pinned up in their cubicle, which I'm sure there's a lot of people, smirking, about that, because that's happened to them, as well. But the first is to understand what is actually going on with your business. What are you charging? What is your yield? What is your floor? What is your average? What are your highs? How did we do quarter over quarter, year over year, week over week? How are we doing?
And sorry to interrupt, but have you seen examples where organizations don't understand all those things?
Oh yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I've worked in two of them, and have seen many more, where they don't really actually understand what is going on against that rate card. So it's nice to have a rate card, but we all know if you don't actually, that goes back to my data point, if you don't have the clean data to match up against your rate card to understand what's going on, hey, the rate card might be wrong. Maybe you've got a bad rate card. Maybe you've got bad floors. Maybe they're too high. Maybe they're too low. You never know until you start a dialogue and you start a conversation. The second mistake that, to your question, I've dealt with and talked to many others, is having an accurate forecast. Ad ops, machine jokes aside, right? But, ad ops should be able to accurately forecast and predict within a certain band what's going to happen. Yes, there are things, worldly, godly events that happen that are out of your control. But for the most part, ad ops people are experts and should be able to give an idea of forecasting revenue as well as inventory. I've also seen a lot of people talk about forecasts in terms of inventory. Nobody really cares about inventory on a business level. They care about revenue. So if you can't monetize that, revenue, and you can't forecast what that's going to be, that can be, quite a challenge. And I'd say the third part is having a feedback loop and a conversation, internally. Ad ops should be ingrained, in my opinion, and I'm obviously biased, but if you think of a hub and spoke, I think ad ops is the middle, right? Is that hub, and they get together. They can pull in the salespeople, they can pull in the marketers, they can pull in finance. They can pull in, content creation, editorial, depending on, what your, platform is all about, and feedback what's going on, right? What are users engaging with? Okay, that's interesting. Well, what are advertisers buying? Because if users are engaging in one thing and advertisers are buying another thing, we have a disconnect. But if we're not talking to each other, we have no idea what is actually going on. Same thing with finance. I spent many hours with our CFO, one of our CFOs, explaining the digital advertising business and how it actually works compared to other businesses, because it's very different. So the third mistake I see people make is that they get into silos. And the senior people and the senior ad ops people, should be communicating and having an open communication channel with the entire business to exchange all that information.
And you're saying even across publishers, from the content generation side and the advertising side, working together, because often 100%. You and I have been in the space where people talk about church and state, yes, and that separation, yes. and they literally use religious metaphor.
I know.
But you're saying that those two sides need to work together more closely if it's to be effective.
They do, James, and I've seen it increase yield. I've seen it increase yield, and I've seen it increase user engagement, and I've seen it increase in revenue, which means that advertisers are coming more and more, and more often. And yeah, there are certain times where, editorial will be like, I don't care whether you can sell this or not. We're doing this because our consumers are demanding it. That's fine. But there's other situations where we had advertisers come and want to be against a certain type of content or a certain type of targeting. And the editorial team, if you will, would be happy, to build against that. They have their own standards, and this was not about asking anybody to violate any sort of, standards or anything, like that. It's just about, I keep coming back to, if you can make it a better experience for the consumer, everybody wins.
Excellent. Matt, as we come to the end here, do you have any final thoughts for the audience, and what is the best way for people to find you?
Yeah. Well, the best way, for people to find me is just probably on LinkedIn. Matthew Gay on LinkedIn. My phone number is up there, and my email address is there as well. So James, I think that if I were to leave with one sort of comment is ad ops is really about being curious. And I said it before, but I think that really, sums things up on all levels, whether you're a trafficker, whether you're an outsourced operator in India or the Philippines, or whether you're the, vice president of, revenue operations. It's really about being curious. Ad ops has all the data in the world. They have the buy side data, they have the sell side data, they've got all kinds of data, they've got all kinds of information, and they've got all sorts of smarts, and they've got all sorts of tools, that are available to them, and they can really be, a resource, an overall resource, not just a revenue resource, but an overall resource for a company, if they get used properly. So,
Matt, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
James, thank you very much. It's really nice to talk to you again.